There's been another blow to American-Iranian relations. New information shows that a US congressman's links with Iran may have been the reason he resigned from the House of Representatives in 2006. Let's get more on this story this morning. Priya Street is in our Washington studio. Hi there, Street. Now, this is potentially big news. How did it all come out?
That's right, Kevin. Well, as the tensions with Iran are growing, it seems like so is the paranoia. Last week, the U.S. government seized property from a charitable organization that it believes is a front for the Iranian government. And now RT contributor and investigative journalist Wayne Madsen has learned that a U.S. congressman may have been forced to resign because of his ties to Iran. And joining me to help talk about it is Mr. Madsen himself. Wayne, thanks so much for joining me. So first of all, I want to ask you, what's going on with this U.S. congressman, and what's the evidence that he could have had ties to Iran?
Well, a former Republican Congressman, Bob Ney from Ohio, very powerful chairman of the House Administrative Services Committee, also known as the mayor of Capitol Hill because of the power that comes with that particular office, got wrapped up in the Jack Abramoff, the GOP lobbyist who was throwing a lot of dirty money at a lot of members of Congress. He was wrapped up in that scandal. But it now appears that Bob Ney and members of his staff were in charge, or at least part of a back-channel conduit to the Iranian government, even fielding a request from the Iranian government of then President Mohammad Khatami in 2003, looking for improved relations with the United States. Bob Ney said he passed that letter on to Karl Rove at the White House, but of course, Ney was indicted later. They went after him, and now they're going after some members of his staff who are members of what's known as the National Iranian-American Council, a lobbying group of Iranian Americans, some of the usual suspects, a neocon journalist named Kenneth Timmerman in the Washington Times. Seems like they've been working to try to discredit one of the heads of this organization, Trita Parsi, and some of his colleagues. We also know that Hassan Namazi, big Democratic contributor to Hillary Clinton, national finance chairman for her presidential campaign, indicted twice in Manhattan now for all kinds of fraud. They're absolutely, it seems like they're going after top-level Iranian Americans and these foundations, as you mentioned, the Alavi Foundation.
So I was just going to ask you, is this a trend? Do you think there has been an increasing number of attacks on Iranian organizations and people with potential ties to Iran in recent days?
Well, there has been, and it looks like the Justice Department, once again, is being used for political purposes, especially the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Manhattan, a sordid history at that office of political uses of U.S. prosecutors to get political revenge and carry out vendettas. We also know that the former Iranian Deputy Defense Minister, Asghari, who was kidnapped from his hotel room in Istanbul some years ago, now it's being reported he's in prison in Israel. So there's a lot going on here. It looks like even though there's not a military attack on Iran, there is a huge propaganda attack, an attack on individual Iranian businessmen, Iranian-American politicians in this country.
And what is the purpose of all of this? You know, recently there were 3 hikers, American hikers, who were taken into custody by the Iranian government and accused of spying. The United States is trying to negotiate to help those 3 hikers out. How is all of this going to affect them, do you think?
Well, it's going to affect them very negatively because as the U.S. Ratchets things up against Iran, Iranian institutions in this country, and Iranian Americans, including residents of this country and U.S. citizens, I don't think the fate of those hikers is going to be it's not going to be very good, the outcome, because Iran will look at that as a signal, a very bad signal, as we're trying to get those 3 hikers released.
And how much of this could potentially have to do with Iran's nuclear activity? You know, many experts are saying that Iran is stalling and making a decision about the uranium export deal. Is this the United States' way of maybe toughening up their stance on Iran? What do you think?
Well, here's the interesting thing about Congressman Ney. Congressman Ney was involved in these back-channel negotiations and working, according to sources I spoke to, with Brewster Jennings and Associates. That was the CIA front company that was headed up by Valerie Plame Wilson. She was outed by the Bush-Cheney White House, and it seems like there was a willful attempt to destroy any legitimate connections with Iranians to show that Iran had, in fact, stopped its nuclear weapons production program in 2003. That's when all this happened primarily, and now we see the effects of it. We don't have good intelligence coming out of Iran anymore because Brewster Jennings was taken down, the Bob Ney network was taken down. We don't have much to go on. If you're the CIA looking for impartial intelligence from that part of the world, you're not getting it.
Wayne, thanks so much. Very interesting stuff. I'll be back here in another hour for another live update. But for now, Kevin, it's back to you. OK, Priya, just reminding our viewers as well, all the interviews carried out there also on our YouTube page, and a chance for our viewers to have their say, to get involved in the stories that we're talking about here at RT. Thanks.